Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Okay, so we had a very special guest join us, Haroon Khan. Haroon Khan is a community leader. He's a community leader because he is a trustee in a local mosque here in Vancouver, and he is also involved in real estate and real estate development as a business in Vancouver and the British Columbia Lower Mainland. But Haroon believes that he should be giving back to the community and helping make community a better place to be. So that's why we did the interview we did with him. We're talking about some of the things that are happening in our local community and, of course, nationwide here in Canada, and maybe some things that are happening around the world that need to be spoke out about, and thus my conversation with Haroon. So let's listen to that next. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here today with Haroon Khan. He is a long-serving trustee of a BC's first mosque, Al Jamia Masjid. And he'll correct his pronunciation for me on that one.
Yeah, it's Al Jamia Masjid, Vancouver.
Yeah.
That's the first mosque established in Vancouver back in 1963.
1963, wow. That's quite a number of years ago. And you're also a human rights activist, which is also kind of why we decided to connect and talk about what's going on in our world right now, especially with what we narrowed it down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, human rights, as you say, we're all part of the human family. It doesn't matter what color you are, what race you are, what creed you are. There are problems all over. And when people realize that, look, we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same sea. And, we're fellow travelers together. And I think when you come to that realization, these things that divide us should really come to unite us as a human family and just take care of each other. That's really what we're there to do. And as I've grown older in my own life, I've seen the struggles that our ancestors had to face, and the very real racism that was prevalent. Michael, I'll tell you a story. Over 100 years ago, in 1914, this month in July, a boat called the Komagata Maru with migrants from India. There were Muslims, Sikhs, and Hindus on that boat, and were languished in the harbor for months and refused entry. And in the end, many of them died as a leader in multiculturalism. And but there's still problems, systemic problems, systemic racism, systemic discrimination, and it's our challenge, especially now in this 21st
boat.
Yeah.
And there was I believe that that recently there was an apology or something like that sent by the Canadian federal government for the mishandling of that situation, wasn't there?
There certainly was. I was actually there. in Ottawa. My cousin and I traveled there at the invitation of the federal government and the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau.